She went under the wheels.
How? Perfected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels Reborn. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And today we're going to turn back the wheel to the year 2012 and slash 1930 and talk about John Hillcoat's moonshine epic, Lawless. Yeah, that's my intro. I was going to try and work in, turning back the wheel, turn back the clock.
Yeah. You could have said Wheel of Time since we were literally just talking about.
You could have turned back the Wheel of Time. Yeah, I know, but I feel like I feel like people. There's two groups of people. Half the groups of people would be like, you made a Wheel of Time reference. I don't know what Wheel of Time is, and the other group would be like, you made a Wheel of Time reference, and it doesn't work because it's not lore accurate. So it's like, kind of like me and Star Wars. That doesn't make sense. That's not lore accurate.
Lore is stupid.
Lore is fun. Lore is fun until it gets too orthodox.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, fantasy and sci-fi lore does become like this weird sort of orthodoxy, and a lot of the orthodoxy is people reading too much into things without any sort of evidence.
Don't you like how I bridged the gap between how the Rise of Skywalker doesn't make sense? Why is Rey flying all over the place while fighting Kylo Ren with a lightsaber? Because it's cool. But she doesn't have that much force power. We proved it in this frame of this movie. And if you read the books... Oh, no.
Between fan theories and conspiracy theories, people sure are good at jumping to conclusions without any evidence whatsoever. And only jumping to conclusions that fit their own internal, psychological narrative about their own life. Nothing that ever contradicts that or may threaten it or prove them wrong or anything.
Yeah.
Just the ones that conform.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if, it's not consistently... It's kind of like how I used to write essays. I would just take the evidence that worked in my favor. I'd just cherry pick evidence. And then there'd be this one piece of evidence that I should include that would totally cause my argument to fall apart and just reference it briefly. But I never did. Mm-hmm. I never did. And then teachers would call me out on it and be like, why didn't you reference this? And I was like, it's not like it's going to be academically published or anything. I'm just trying to get a B, man.
This is not going in a journal. Not like anything from the are there any humanities journals anyway? It's was your essay about Hitchcock peer reviewed?
I mean, that's a good question, because I know medical journal. I wonder if it works differently in
because I know in the hard sciences there are academic journals, and they're at least supposed to be very rigorous in terms of what they let in and let out, and sometimes that rigor is just turned into kind of a weird elitism, or they're not rigorous enough and just let in bullshit. But, no one's perfect.
Right. They do their best. If we get enough eyes on it, we hope that it'll all work out. It's fine. I think at least with film and media studies, the mark of a good academic essay is that it appears in the Criterion release of that movie.
Ooh.
But there's got to be because I know that there's textbooks that are written.
That's kind of true.
There's textbooks that are written, and then there are some journals that explore it because I haven't seen one in proof, but I've seen them referenced in bibliographies. So
yeah.
So I think there's something like that. I guess there is, because a lot of PhD students do have their articles scrutinized and they have to defend them, which then leads me into my problem.
You have to defend your thesis.
Your thesis, yeah. Well,
what's interesting is
with this argument here.
I gotta say, textbooks. There's two foolproof scams that are they're simple and they're brilliant and they're almost guaranteed to work every time. And it's textbooks and licensing. Yeah, because with textbooks, if you're a professor, you write a textbook, right? It's basically a lot of it's regurgitating information that's usually pretty basic that everyone in your field knows, but that you have to impart to a younger generation.
Right.
And then you charge $500 for it. And there's a new edition every year, so you can charge $500 again. And then if you teach your own class and use your own textbook, you're basically just jerking yourself off with a wad of $100 bills.
Yeah. Let me pose a slight counter argument to that, because I agree with you, but I don't know how much the people who write the textbook get in royalties. I will say that the people who publish the textbooks, they're the ones who make a killing.
They do make a killing, that's true. Well, okay, here's the test. If your professor uses their own textbook in their class, if they ask you to buy it, they're making money. If they tell you to pirate it, they want to screw over their publisher.
So I have a funny story about that. So my astronomy professor, I always go to astrology, and I'm like, no, I took astronomy. My astronomy professor.
I am learned in the subject of bullshit.
I am learned in the subject of signs that don't mean anything. My astronomy professor had a book, and he's like, and I published this textbook. Now, I published it with 5 other people. We will not be using every chapter. They have it in the bookstore. You can buy a used copy of it, and you'll be just fine. Like, I guess he's not getting his royalties from that book. But
Well, you know what I've heard that it's common for professors to get royalties from books, but it's rare for them to get royalties from academic journals. It's the academic journals where they get fucked. So you know how like every college has like a $200,000 a year subscription to some like Bloomberg-esque database, but instead of financial data, it's
essays.
It's essays in various fields. So I've heard a lot of professors make no money off of that. Mm-hmm. So they will pirate their own work and give it to you as a PDF or direct you to piracy websites because they're like, fuck these people. I put in so much. I spent 2 years writing this article. I had it vetted by like 10 of my highly esteemed colleagues, and I've gotten nothing for it.
That makes me think of like, because like the textbook is like, oh my god, I have to dumb down all of my arguments into really simple prose so people can learn it. But it makes me a lot of money. The textbook is like the selling out. And then with the academic journal, it's like, this is a subject I'm really passionate about. I really want to talk about this. I think the discourse is there. Let's talk about it, but I won't make any money. That is the art house. Like,
I know.
The eternal struggle. I know a lot of the time they have to get they'll get published in an academic journal because the majority of, like, if you're a PhD professor at a university, you have to be published at least once a year, something like that. So
Publish
a lot of
or perish.
Yeah, they're like, oh, here's an argument about how Donald Duck is actually a subversive icon for homosexuality. Like,
dude,
what?
freaking media studies articles are the best because they're so bonkers. Like, scientific literature is always very
super dry.
It's always very factual and very like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that, like, this is a thing that makes sense. Here's evidence to support it, and so on.
Yeah.
And it's always like, oh, and a lot of stuff, it's like interesting and practical. Like, it's like, well, I discovered this like weird way of building semiconductors that may lead to 50% more, out something. It's like, oh, okay, that's a neat, like, useful thing. I'm glad this person found that out. Whereas, like, a lot of scholarly articles in the humanities have like clickbaity, like BuzzFeed article type subject matter, where it's like, is Goofy secretly a gay icon or something?
No, but it can't be that clickbaity. So they're like Dippy Dog : the cultural history of Goofy and its subsequent ripple effect on the economies of young intelligence.
Well,
Like,
yeah, it's
something
always
like that.
Okay, let me rephrase that. It's BuzzFeed, like, Tumblr clickbait garbage, but
pretentious.
It's all using like highly technical vernacular. So it's the same subject presenting the same arguments, but it reads like a technical manual.
I love it. The problem I had with a lot of them was, like, I'm so used to the I can't believe we're going on and on about this, but I'm used to the sandwich way of writing an essay where they're like, oh, introductory paragraph, supporting paragraph 1, 2, and 3, concluding paragraph, and it's all kind of boring. And then you read like some of the like academic journal-y articles, and like I'm reading through and I'm like, I don't know if I've hit their thesis yet. What are they trying to explore? And then it's like 3 paragraphs in under subsection 1, they're like, They're like, yes, and Donald Duck is clearly gay because he doesn't wear pants, and let me prove it to you now. I was like, what?
So yeah, I was gonna say, pro tip for any of our listeners who are still in school: just read the last page of every scholarly article that you're required to read, and you'll get all the information you need.
Yeah, that's sometimes true. Sometimes it gets really esoteric where I was like, what the heck am I reading? Why am I would just start highlighting a bunch of stuff. I'd go back and reread what I highlighted, and I was like, why would I highlight this? This doesn't make any sense. Man. Pro tip, kids, find the person who's actually really smart about the articles, become their friends, and then have them tell you why the article is good. But anyway, which naturally leads us to Gabe, what have you been watching this last week? I just piggyback off of your ideas anyway. I'll be like, yeah, I thought this movie was good. And you're like, no, this movie's a dumpster fire, and this is why. And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. This movie is a dumpster fire. Repeat point 1, 2, and 3.
I was going to say, you're talking about your essay writing methods and how there's in any kind of argument, there's always evidence that will contradict you or, threaten the point you're trying to make. And the secret is when you're writing an essay to not acknowledge it.
Right. Right. That's theoretically that's what you want to do until someone calls you out on it.
I never got called out on it because I just always argue pretty forcefully, which helps. It's because any argument I make, I am 100% certain there's something you could find wrong with it. But if I just if I speak or write forcefully enough, there's the chance that you may just forget.
And then if I say no after every one of your points, that also helps.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered no?
No.
Boba Fett is a useless character. Yeah, but he has that one no. Stop talking.
No.
You're wrong. But you haven't even listened to me. I don't need to. You're done. We're moving on.
So, what have I been watching lately, you ask?
Yeah.
I watched Strictly Ballroom because I hate Baz Luhrmann with a burning passion, and someone said that Strictly Ballroom is his only good movie, and it is his only good movie.
Oh, I forgot that he did Strictly Ballroom.
Yeah, it's good. It has some elements of his meth head pacing, but I don't know. It's stylish. It's funny. It's got some cool quirks to it. There's kind of a flashback that's done as a silent dance number where all of the older characters are wearing heavy pancake makeup and reenacting past events in this very silly over the top way.
I don't even know
So
what
I thought that
means.
was cool.
Pancake makeup.
Yeah. Really heavy makeup. So you can't see the face underneath, basically. And it's got a fun, satisfying ending. It's ultra stylish, but in a good way and not in a stupid way like all of Baz Luhrmann's other movies. So yeah, I liked it. I still don't like Baz Luhrmann as a filmmaker, but I like Strictly Ballroom.
What is Strictly Ballroom about?
It's about the world of competitive ballroom dancing and how there is a conspiracy to enforce a very conservative style of dancing across all competitions in order for the sport to be deemed respectable. And how there's a guy who has a taste for very flashy moves, which is constantly getting him kicked out of competitions because even though they please the crowd, they don't please the judges who are all very stodgy and conservative. And it's basically him trying to prove them all wrong. And then you also find out that there's a lot of weird malfeasance and conspiratorial stuff in enforcing this hard line, all your moves have to be strictly ballroom, nothing outside of that. Also, the main villain looks exactly like the president, which is hilarious.
Our current president?
Our current president, yeah. He's just our president with an Australian accent, which I thought was so bizarre.
So, one, is John Leguizamo in the movie? I just pulled up the cast, so I think I know the answer to this, but is John Leguizamo in the movie?
Zero famous people in the movie. It's all obscure Australian actors.
That's too bad, because Baz Luhrmann's One of his many recurring themes is John Leguizamo in weird roles.
Talking a mile a minute.
Talking a mile a minute, digitally altered to be a midget.
Dude, I watched like 4 minutes of Moulin Rouge, and I almost had a stroke. Like, that movie is so awful. It's like everything is happening too fast. Like you know how, like, if you've ever seen Ken Burns' baseball or any kind of historical baseball program, it'll be like someone saying, Ty Cobb was a blazing fast runner, and then it'll show a clip of Ty Cobb running, but it's at like 8 frames per second, so it looks like he's running
really fast,
superhumanly fast. Yeah, that's what Baz Luhrmann's movies look like. They're they all look like they're being shown at 8 frames a second, so everything's happening super fast. Like, all the camera moves are a little too quick, all the cuts are a little too quick, which is like, I feel like it's on, crackhead time or something.
So I have a complicated history with Baz Luhrmann because I think Romeo plus Juliet, which is the weirdest math problem I've ever seen, is such an interesting idea and like so obviously influenced by its time period. And there's certain things in there that I think are really cool, and certain things in there that I think are just like really stupid. But that's also a lot of people's entry point into Romeo and Juliet, even though it's the worst entry point into Romeo and Juliet.
Yep.
I think Moulin Rouge is just, I really don't like it. I was going to say, I think it's a burning pile of shit. I really don't like Moulin Rouge. I was kind of interested and excited to watch it because I was like, oh yeah, Ewan McGregor, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh, Nicole Kidman, she's hot. And then I watched Moulin Rouge and I was like, no, it's not for me. And then I skipped Australia and I watched The Great Gatsby, and I like half of The Great Gatsby. I like the second half of it a lot more than I like the first half. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is actually pretty good in the role, but the first half of it where it's just like, it's like watching Moulin Rouge in The Great Gatsby, and it does not do the novel service at all. So I have a complicated history with Baz Luhrmann, but
Go ahead. I've seen bits and pieces of The Great Gatsby, and I tried to watch it, and there was there was something where someone says something, and there's a reaction shot where the person gets up with a shocked expression, and the camera pushes in. Yeah. And it all happens 50% faster than it should. Yeah, and I'm like, nope, I'm done. I can't do it.
The post sped up footage of the Baz Luhrmann films. Yeah, no, I don't like that. I don't like his like when he's going hyper stylized in Can from Moulin Rouge, or like the first time that Nick Carraway's at a party in The Great Gatsby. I was just like, I almost wanted to just throw in the towel immediately. But The Great Gatsby has such a fantastic cast. Like, I like almost every single one of those actors in that movie that I'm like, oh, maybe I should go back and watch it because of the cast. But he's an interesting filmmaker who has had somewhat of an effect on Hollywood back in the 2000s.
Some of his movies were smash hits, man.
Well, I know Moulin Rouge was, and Romeo plus Juliet was, but
for people my age, the Leo DiCaprio Great Gatsby is like their adaptation of The Great Gatsby.
That's true.
Even though it sucks. Like, it's not good at all. But then again, there's only one good adaptation of The Great Gatsby, and that's the one with Paul Rudd.
What? Which?
Yeah, there's an adaptation of The Great Gatsby with Paul Rudd as Nick Carraway, and it's actually really good.
What? I actually like the Robert Redford one.
I hate that one. That one's so bad. Mainly because of Mia Farrow. She's just awful.
She's just like,
she's such a spaz. Like, I don't know what it is. But, like, I mean, Robert Redford is a good Gatsby, but Sam Waterston's kind of a lousy Nick, and then Mia Farrow is
Sam Waterston's pretty terrible. Sam Waterston's pretty terrible in that movie. Okay, all right. This one here. Let's see. Is this like a made-for-TV movie? Yes, it is. I think so. With Paul Rudd, does he put on a fake American accent?
What do you mean? He's American.
I mean, a fake British accent is like. Do they transport the whole movie to England where everyone's
No.
Let's see, Mira Sorvino.
He's just Paul Rudd.
It's so weird, but it's cause here's the reason why. Because it's saying on Wikipedia, The Great Gatsby is a 2000 British American romantic drama television film. What?
Yeah.
What does England have to do with this?
I don't know. It's probably because England put some money into it or something. But
The
yeah,
BBC
it's a good
financed.
movie. That's the best adaptation of The Great Gatsby is the Paul Rudd TV movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was, there's that scene in The Great Gatsby where Daisy comes over to Gatsby's house and he's giving her the grand tour, and they go into his giant walk-in closet and he throws all these shirts at her.
In which one?
In the book.
Oh, okay. I think so.
That scene is weird. It's really weird on a literal level. Why is he throwing shirts at her and why is she coming? But if you do it it's played off in the book. It's written well enough that you don't really question these people are weird as fuck. This scene is weird as fuck. You're oh, okay, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. However, the cinematic adaptations, the Robert Redford one and the Leo DiCaprio one, I think in both of those, the scene is really bizarre to the point where comically weird, something out of the room. I remember watching the Robert Redford one in school, and everyone in the classroom, including myself, was just losing their minds laughing as Mia Farrow was oh my God, getting covered with Robert Redford's shirts.
See, I don't remember that scene in the movie because in my mind now I'm just imagining super slow motion as Mia Farrow's throwing her hands in the air, touching her hair as these shirts are falling over her in a Michael Bay fashion. You know who should direct a version of The Great Gatsby?
Oh no.
Where every time they're driving their sports car, it looks like it's out of a car. I feel I guess that's what Baz Luhrmann was trying to do, but he missed the shot of Jay Gatsby and Nick Carraway standing up while the camera's rotating around them, and something's a firework is exploding in the background.
Oh my God, dude! It's gonna be
dude, that
Shia LaBeouf as Nick Carraway, and Mark Wahlberg as Jay Gatsby.
But then I guess Stanley Tucci would be what's his name, Tom Buchanan. The fucking Stanley Tucci doing it here, and just some a random Victoria's Secret model plays as Daisy Buchanan. I actually kind of want to see this version of The Great Gatsby.
That sounds horrible.
We're oh man, I was gonna say. Oh, yeah, no, I think, you know what, dude? That's The Great Gatsby that everyone really needs. Just put adaptations of Great Gatsby to bed with that movie. It'll just kill it. Just kill it outright.
If Michael Bay made a Great Gatsby movie, then I feel The Great Gatsby as a book would be revised to it's no longer an American classic.
You can literally see F. Scott Fitzgerald turning in his grave.
I know.
A random Michael Bay cut to F. Scott Fitzgerald turning in his grave, losing his nose. Oh God. How did we get? Oh right, Strictly Ballroom.
Yeah. So yeah, Strictly Ballroom's pretty good. It's Baz Luhrmann's one good movie. The other thing I saw this week, or this past 2-week period, was The Talented Mr. Ripley, which is actually pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised because I wasn't expecting much going into it.
I've gotten halfway through.
It's long as hell, which is an issue, but
I mean, all of Anthony Minghell's movies are. The English Patient, oh God.
Well, The English Patient holds a special place in, I think, film history for being the most hated Best Picture winner of all time.
For a long time, yeah. For a long time.
That and Crash, basically.
That, Crash, and now Green Book.
Oof, yeah. Green Book, which is literally just a remake of Driving Miss Daisy, but with two dudes.
You got Whitey driving the car.
Oh yeah, and they're flipped.
Well, I haven't seen Driving Miss Daisy. I don't know anyone who's seen Driving Miss Daisy, but I really hope there's a scene in Driving Miss Daisy where Morgan Freeman is I can't drive no more, Miss Daisy, and like goes into the back of the car, and the actress who's playing as Miss Daisy gets to the front and starts driving it home so that, you know, Morgan Freeman can be home in time for Christmas dinner.
What?
Green Book, Viggo Mortensen's like, I can't keep my eyes open anymore, and so they have
What
that.
makes you think I've seen Green Book?
Well, okay. Quick review of Green Book. Mahershala Ali is really good in it. There you go. And so is Viggo Mortensen. And there you go.
Who cares? That movie looks boring as hell.
It was actually pretty, like, as a regular movie, like, yeah, I would, you know, I'd show it in my, you know, history class. You know? It was entertaining enough, and it'd teach someone about racism in the South. So, yeah. Anyway.
Man, you gotta show quality cinema in your class, not Green Book.
No, Green
Book.
Book.
From the people who brought you Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber 2.
And
Dumb and Dumber 3.
No, there is no Dumb and Dumber 3, and the Farrelly brothers didn't work on Dumb and Dumberer. So it's Dumb and Dumber 2, and that one movie with Matt Damon and Greg Kinnear where they're connected at their conjoined twins called Stuck on You. Bobby Farrelly!
In fairness to the Farrelly brothers, I do like some of their movies, but it's just Green Book seems like such an exercise in pretentious self-congratulation.
It's I mean, the thing about the Farrelly brothers is like I think they're pretty funny storytellers, but I wouldn't call them as a filmmaking duo good filmmakers. Like I don't think that there's a high quality on how they stage shots, edit the movie together, work to tell a cohesive story. And so I think with Green Book, it's almost like watching. It's like if it's like when the Zucker brothers did like Ghost and like First Night, where you're watching it and you're like, well, they clearly know how to like put a movie together, but they don't necessarily know how to like pretentious, like they don't know how to make a film. It's kind of the same thing where it's not like there's any sort of like there's nothing interesting told through like the editing or the camera staging or anything like that.
That's most comedy filmmaking. It's pretty meat and potatoes. It's just like have an actor do funny things and make sure the camera's pointed at them.
Right. Well, I mean, and normally I would agree with you, but then you have like The Big Short, which is like, oh, okay, that's different. That's
The Big Short from Cinematic Auteur Adam McKay.
Cinematic Comedy Auteur Adam McKay. Who, yeah, like he actually did something that was like really different. Whereas like Green Book feels like the Farrelly brothers shooting, well, Bob Farrelly, I think it was Bob, right? Or was it Peter? Peter Farrelly shooting his movie just like Dumb and Dumber 2, but, you know, with the dramatic subject matter instead. By Nick Vallelonga's son, so... so obviously there's staging there.
So anyway, Talented Mr. Ripley's a good movie. Like it's stuffed to the gills with actors I like, like
Jude Law,
and
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Not really her. Kate Blanchett though. Kate Blanchett's awesome in everything.
Yeah.
I feel like Kate Blanchett's criminally underrated because she's like, I don't know, she's like the women's Tom Hardy, you know? Like she's like one of the best actors in the world, and she's game for everything. Like she'll do like some artsy movie, and then she'll be in some like shitty blockbuster, but she always seems to give like 100% effort no matter what the project is.
Well, so it's
always good to see her and stuff.
I don't think I would actually say that in times I think she's kind of overrated because she has what, like 3 Academy Awards, and like every movie she's in, it seems like she's nominated for another one. So to me,
I think she's getting those just to make up for the fact that Toni Collette doesn't get any. It's like, they're both Australian or whatever. Just give another one to Kate Blanchett.
Oh, Toni Collette is going to be the new Glenn Close, where Glenn Close is so Glenn Close to winning an Academy Award. But
I can't believe you said that.
But she never, like, she will forever be the bridesmaid, just holding the holding the trail of what's her name, Meryl Streep, as Meryl Streep wins another Academy Award.
Yeah, I guess I should say Toni Collette's the real Tom Hardy because she's excellent and then gets no one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares that she's brilliant.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, and then you watch Knives Out and you're like, Toni Collette, you're so good and you do a good job here, but this character is so bad.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of Knives Out's kind of tacky.
Yeah.
It's not her fault.
It's a giant ham in the middle of this movie.
I know. Oh, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is in Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah.
Another one of the speaking of greatest actors of all time. So it's always good to see him in things.
I love that Philip Seymour Hoffman was in Along Came Polly, and explained to me what a shart is. That's always going to be a fond Philip Seymour Hoffman memory for me.
Every Philip Seymour Hoffman memory is a fond one, Matthew.
Even when he's in a shitty movie.
Even when he's in a shitty movie. So yeah, all the acting is really good. I think the character of Tom Ripley is really fascinating, and especially the way he's portrayed in the movie, because my understanding is it's kind of different from the book. Because he's a pretty clever, manipulative sociopath, but he does have a lot of remorse over how his own he behaves kind of compulsively. And then he always seems to regret how his compulsive actions fuck up his life, which I think is kind of a fascinating character study. There's also some weird stuff where he has a superpower essentially, where he's really good at impersonating people and disguising himself.
Yeah.
And the way it's portrayed in the movie is Matt Damon is really good at impressions, but when he's but when he's doing impressions, a lot of the time you can tell his voice is being dubbed.
Oh.
So there's there's a scene where he's trying to get in with Jude Law's character to essentially siphon money from him or live off of him as a parasite.
Right.
So he loves classical music. Jude Law's character loves jazz. Dickie Greenleaf, which is such a great name because it's so weird. Tom Ripley likes classical music. Dickie Greenleaf. I can't even say it with a straight face.
I can't say
Dickie Greenleaf.
Anyone with the first name
likes
Dickie
jazz.
just makes me laugh.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, he likes jazz. So Tom he self-educates himself about jazz and eventually develops a liking for the genre. So later in the movie, they go to Jude Law's favorite jazz club where Jude Law likes to get up and sing when he's really drunk, and Tom plays the piano, and then Tom starts singing My Funny Valentine, but he's singing it in Billie Holiday's voice. They're playing the actual song, and then it's Matt Damon lip syncing, and it's so weird. But that thing where he's really good at impressions, but it's really bad, his impressions are just really bad ADR, pops up a lot in the movie, which totally throws you out of the picture.
No.
The other thing is every wealthy person in the movie is either gay or acts super duper gay. So I was kind of wondering, is this just a rich person thing? Because amongst the men in the movie, there's kind of an overrepresentation where all the dudes are hitting on each other constantly. I thought that was just kind of odd, I guess, because it's why is every guy hitting on each other? Yeah.
I'm looking at a synopsis and it's as a Tom Ripley is a brilliant man, and like you said in the movie, he teaches himself all about jazz. I'm I wonder if around the 90s Matt Damon was starting to get typecasted as the most brilliant man on earth who also is a criminal.
I don't know, maybe. That's an interesting thought though, because he does kind of play that Will Hunting type of character, except he's this. In this movie, he's a psychopathic, closeted man, basically. And it's also, there's a lot of really cool artsy camera work and framing especially, because Tom's whole relationship with Dickie Greenleaf is it's like he wants to be Dickie Greenleaf, like he wants to have his life this sort of one of the leisurely rich, where he never works, he just sits around and has a steady income from his wealthy industrialist dad that he gets to live off of and fuck around in Europe with.
Yeah.
So he wants to become Dickie Greenleaf, and part of him wanting to be Dickie Greenleaf is also expressed in him falling in love with Dickie Greenleaf.
Right.
But there's a lot of cool like camera work, like especially involving mirrors and stuff. Like there's a scene where he's dressing up in Dickie's suit, and Dickie walks in and catches him dressing up in his clothes. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And Tom runs around and hides behind a mirror. So there's a shot of Matt Damon standing behind a mirror where you just see his head popping up over the top, and then Jude Law is standing in the mirror's reflection. I was like, ah ha ha, symbolism. I like it. And then there's another one where they're sitting on a train and Dickie Greenleaf is falling asleep, and there's a window next to them, and Tom's looking at the window and kind of like Dickie's in profile, and then Tom is looking straight on, but their faces are lined up, so it's like half Jude Law's face, half Matt Damon's face. And I'm like, more symbolism. That's good. So yeah, I like a lot of that stuff. I mean, John Seal is the DP on this movie, so of course it's gonna look fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good movie. I did not expect much going into it, but it's really well done. It's very interesting. A lot of great performances. It's very technically solid with some good artistic flourishes. There's some kind of corny stuff in there too, which is, go figure. And Philip Baker Hall has a cameo.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah.
It feels like this movie should have been directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and not Anthony Minghella, with all the symbolism and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Baker Hall. Philip Baker Hall.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. I know I should get back to finishing it, but I was kind of like, where is this going? And then I think like halfway through, doesn't he kill Jude Law? And then like...
Yeah, so the movie, like, what I've noticed is movies typically have that 3-act structure. Books typically have a 2-act structure, where it's like you have story A, which ends in like some kind of climax at the halfway point of the book, and then the second half of the book is the fallout from that climax.
Okay.
So a lot of like highbrow literature that you read in school and that like kind of fits Patricia Highsmith's writing style as well, seems to have that kind of structure where your escalation to the big event is pretty quick, and then the second half of the story is the fallout from that event. So like you can kind of tell if a movie's based on a piece of literature if it has that sort of a structure. Like one that really stuck out to me was what's the hillbilly rape movie from the 70s? Deliverance, yes. Deliverance has that structure. Hey, that's what people know it as. It's the hillbilly rape movie.
That movie with the banjos?
Yeah.
They get fucked to death?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, the movie, it's the build-up to that famous scene, and then the rest of the movie is the fallout from that scene. So, like, the point of highest tension is almost always in the middle.
Interesting. Yeah, no. I hear you. I'm just trying to think, because I was also thinking about, like, Jude Law as, like, an entitled, spoiled, rich guy who doesn't always get his way and wants to be lazy. That reminded me of Gattaca, so I was wondering if Jude Law was typecast as well. And then I forgot that Walter Murch edited basically every single one of Anthony Minghella's movies. So I was like, there was like
your boy Walter Murch.
Yeah, my boy. Every editor's dream. Walter Murch, who believes continuity is second to last on the list of most important things to focus on when editing a movie. But I'm trying to think of more examples of that, because I know with a lot of books, I guess you could say it's kind of similar with Goodfellas, and like there's a clear turning point in the movie where it goes from like, isn't gangster life great, to doesn't gangster life suck?
Yeah.
So,
or it's like, I remember I had to read that book a separate piece in high school, and I mostly remember it being bad. But the other thing I remember is that it has that same like two-part structure to it, where it's a combination of the inciting incident and the climax in screenplay speak. The big thing is in the middle, and the book is just everything leading up to the big thing, and then all of the fallout from the big thing.
Yeah. I wonder if, on like a kind of a separate note, I wonder if like the reason why a screenplay is kind of built, I wouldn't even say like a 2-act play, but like with the 3-act structure, is because like in order to lead an audience time by time, point by point, it's easiest to kind of bring them in and have every movie separated into like 3 clear segments.
Well, I don't know. I think it's like there's a recurring thing in the arts with triangles, where basically anything that stands on 3 points is going to be stable, whereas anything that stands on an even number of points is going to be kind of risky. So if you look at a lot of classical paintings, there's triangles everywhere if the painting is supposed to be serene and calm. And then if the painting is supposed to be like dynamic or exciting, it's all diagonal lines. So I think the 3-act structure is almost like some weird, like someone intuited shoving a triangle into a screenplay without really consciously thinking about it, and it just sort of stuck because triangles, man.
Well, the weird thing about the 3-act structure is that like in the 3-act structure, they're always like Act 1, you introduce everything. Act 2 has to have a midpoint in the middle, and then Act 3 is where everything like wraps up, and they don't have to be even, but like well, and
there's a turning point that delineates the acts as well.
Right, but like if the second act is broken up into 2 acts, then is it really a 3-act structure? Like that's always like Bordwell and Thompson, I think, had the most interesting take, and they're like, look, you can look at it as a 3-act structure. The way we prefer to look at it is that depending on how long the movie's runtime is the amount of breaks you'll get in the movie. You can call them acts if you want, but like strong moments happen basically like if the movie's a general 2-hour movie, then you have 4 segments.
Well, so here's the thing, like you can, like we were saying at the very beginning of the show, with people steezing on whatever fits their narrative and then fitting it to their narrative and ignoring everything else.
Yeah.
You can take the plot of any movie, book, TV show, play, or video game and make it fit 2 acts. You can make it fit 3 acts. You can make it fit 4. You can make it fit 5.
Right.
You know, it's just the only difference is that if you're a writer who cares about that sort of thing, you may be consciously working with a certain number of acts in mind. Like there's a lot of screenwriters who will consciously work with 3 acts in their head. Like Shakespeare always wrote with 5 acts, on his mind, because that's like the Jacobean style. But you could take any Shakespeare play and be like, whoa, it's actually a 3-act play if you do it like this, or it's actually a 12-act play if you do it like this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I always find it funny, and again, a lot of the time I think it also breaks down into 3-act structures because people are like, oh, it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's like, oh yeah, well that is a good way to work it, because then you can be like, oh, the beginning is only, you know, like, hi, I'm Hamlet. The middle is like, I must have revenge, and the end is like, oh, I'm dead. And it's like, hey, there you go, 3-act structure. So I think that's why they choose to like have the 3-act. In addition to like, I think it's interesting, like you said, about the art of it all, of like a tripod has 3 legs, it's stable. But if you add a 4th leg onto that tripod, all of a sudden it gets weird.
Yeah, it's one of those
for
things,
lack of a
like,
better.
Well, it also applies to cinematography and photography. Like Composition 101, triangles are stable, slanted lines are edgy. That's how you get like
Battlefield Earth.
I know. So well, that's why like canted angles are like, oh whoa, like for that kind of a purpose, right? Because you turn all of your horizontal lines to the side, and suddenly the composition becomes really like dynamic and exciting. By that same token, if you are filming a movie and you stuff your frame with triangles or like 3-part compositions, it's gonna feel very like calm.
Yeah. Plus the hierarchy of forms a lot of the times. Like if you look at posters, you can break it down into an easy triangle.
Oh yeah. Movie posters are covered with triangles.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to like draw you in and be sort of non-threatening.
Well, it's also just visually like it's an easy, just kind of like how 3 acts is kind of an easy way to look at things. If you have, things broken down into triangles, or even like composition wise, like the rule of thirds, it's just like, oh, hey, look, and just make sure you hit these points.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, fun stuff, art theory. Didn't expect that on Under the Wheels today. But Talented Mr. Ripley, pretty good.
Pretty good.
I've been meaning to go back and finishing it, but at this point it's been so long that I feel like I need to just start from the beginning.
Just you watch it all in one sitting. I'm one of those people, I cannot watch a movie in parts. Like if I start a movie, I have to watch the entire thing.
If it's a movie I've seen before, I can watch it in parts. But if it's a fresh movie, I try and do it all in one sitting.
Yeah.
Try to. The operative word.
Try. We all try. So what have you been watching lately? Or trying to watch lately?
Right. It's funny because I just started 6 Underground, so that's the movie I'm trying to watch lately. The only thing of note that I've seen is Colossal with Anne Hathaway. Did you see that when it came out?
Hold on.
Are you familiar with it?
I feel like I might know what it is, but it's going to take me a sec.
Okay, the plot
is that the movie where she like controls a monster, like a kaiju monster or something?
Yes.
Okay.
It's really good.
Oh, really? Okay.
There's the long and the short of it. It's really good. It's basically it's kind of a cliche story about like irresponsible person who finds out, like, who gets responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility, but it does take some interesting twists and turns with it, specifically with a lot of the supporting characters and her relationship to those people. It kind of starts off slow because, again, the movie's about Anne Hathaway playing an alcoholic train wreck of a person who has to move home, and so they kind of have like the small town thing, and then kind of randomly just mix in like a giant kaiju monster attacks the city of Seoul, South Korea for like 5 minutes. And so like but the movie has like a rhyme and reason kind of to why that happens and how it's connected. And the movie does a good job of like slowly establishing all of the rules for people. And they have that interesting moment, like in most kaiju movies, where like the panicked response of like the South Korean people is like, we need to get our military formed and protect the perimeter. But like at no time do they actually evacuate the city. It's just like people are still there, which ends up leading into a plot point near the end of the movie. But everyone does a pretty good job. I think like Anne Hathaway is probably, she's like on her A game through the movie, given that it's a ridiculous premise. And Jason Sudeikis is really good in it too. He has to have kind of like a larger range. I've never been a huge fan of Jason Sudeikis, but he's really good in this. So
I don't know anyone who is.
Apparently Olivia Wilde is and like somehow Hollywood keeps his career going. It's just chugging along. Hey, I'm Jason Sudeikis, and I'm in another movie where I'm gonna,
play kind of an asshole.
And kind of talk fast, and like a poor man's Jeff Goldblum, who's not nearly as charismatic
and a lot meaner.
But I thought Colossal was really good, especially like the last act of the movie is like particularly strong.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was good. But yeah, that's what I've been. If you haven't seen it, well, you don't have Hulu, do you?
Nope. I'm not made of money, Matthew.
Not in this economy, anyway. Oh, man. Speaking of economy, not enough money, and things being oddly outlawed, let's talk about Lawless. Okay, so I have just like Baz Luhrmann, I feel like I have a complex relationship with John Hillcoat movies.
I have a very simple relationship with John Hillcoat movies. I really like what John Hillcoat movies aspire to be, and I'm constantly disappointed with what they are.
Oh, good. We have the exact same relationship to John Hillcoat movies. I have a sample size of 2, though. The Proposition and Lawless.
3.
Did you also watch The Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I love The Proposition, but it's never as good as I wish it was. Like I think it's a great movie, but I feel like it could be so much better. I don't know how.
More Guy Pearce.
It could be better. Well, that's part of it, yeah. I think more. I mean, I appreciate its bluntness, but I also think sometimes that works against itself.
Yeah.
Proposition, I think, is his best movie by far.
Out of the 3 you've seen.
Out of 3 I've seen, yeah. The Road is really good as well, but it's, again, one of those movies that's, like, weirdly underwhelming, given what it is and what it theoretically should be.
And who's in it, too. Like, that's
and who's in it, yeah.
That's kind of important, too.
And so is Lawless, to an extent. Like, on paper, like, this should be one of the greatest movies of all time. Like,
yes.
It's got Tom Hardy in a starring role. It's got that Australian dude that they tried to keep putting in everything, who's like kind of
Jason
whatever.
Clarke, yeah. Everyone's favorite bland man, Jason Clarke.
I know. It's got Shia LaBeouf acting like a jackass. It has Guy Pearce playing like the weirdest person in John Hillcoat's filmography.
Yeah.
Hey, why do you call me a Nance?
Why do you call me
a Nance, buddy?
Let me part my hair harder.
I know. Let me part my hair with more vigor. It's got Gary Oldman in it.
Oh my god!
Like, it's about like booze running, moonshining gangsters in the South
in a cool time period. It wasn't the South. Aren't they in Illinois? I thought they were in Illinois.
No, they're in shit. Well, now you're making me look up where they are. I was pretty certain it wasn't. I think it was like.
I know it was shot in
Tennessee
Georgia. I know it was shot in Georgia.
Virginia.
Okay, Piedmont region of Virginia. That's why they were talking about Virginia shits out of his ass. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just one of those things that like it. Oh, and Dane DeHaan's in it, and he's always good, even though he plays the same like sort of.
You feel bad for him.
Person and everything.
Except for Valerian, where he probably was just like tragically miscast.
I know.
He
was such like a hot property, and then I feel like he's in some weird semi-retirement.
I know. Well, I remember when I started rewatching it, I was like, man, they should have just gotten Dane DeHaan to play Shia LaBeouf's role. But I mean, it's important that they did not do that.
I know, because Shia LaBeouf is like the perfect level of cringy for that role.
Oh, God. All right. I kind of want to go through every single one of your points about like this should have been the perfect movie with like regarding the cast and the time period and everything like that.
And the subject matter and just John Hillcoat's love of like extreme violence.
Yes.
And like dark shit.
Yeah.
And his weird sense of irony that seems to pervade a lot of his movies. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
but at the end of the day, like it's a good movie. It should be a great movie, but it's a good movie.
So what's your rating for it?
It's a Witness.
Yeah, I would say when I first saw it, I thought it was fine, but I think after rewatching it, I think it's a pretty solid Witness.
Yeah.
It's a lot better the second time than it was the first time for me. First time I was like, ugh, this piece of shit, train wreck, piece of crap, Shia LaBeouf bullshit. Where's Tom Hardy? Why isn't he in this fucking movie enough? Yes. But it has a lot of problems.
Right off the bat, I'm going to say, like, Tom Hardy should be able to sell me on any movie. And one of the main reasons I wanted to see this was because he's in it. And this is probably one of his least interesting or dynamic performances that I can recall. He's weirdly one note for a guy who is capable of so much, like, subtle range and doing a lot of interesting things with characterization.
Yeah.
Like, his performance is really good, especially early on. But as the film goes, like, he doesn't seem to change much, even though his character is supposed to be changing. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of sitting there like, what the... what the hell?
Yeah,
You know?
I feel like it starts from like a point of view problem in the movie, in that like the only character you probably could tell this movie from is Shia LaBeouf's point of view, but like it kind of paints it so that Tom Hardy is supposed to be kind of like the main character. He's supposed to be the Cillian Murphy of Peaky Blinders, and yet you don't see him doing Cillian Murphy stuff. You just kind of see him walking, and he hits a couple of people a couple of times, and
yeah. Well, it's also just like his belief in his own invincibility. In his own immortality, and his developing relationship with Jessica Chastain's character. Like, those were, I think, opportunities for Tom to do more with the character, and I don't think he did. And I don't know if that's him or if it's John Hillcoat or both of them, or the script, which was written by Nick Cave.
Yeah.
Which, it's interesting, like, how entwined he is with
John
Hillcoat in particular, but Aussie filmmakers generally.
Really?
I think so. I feel like he's done something with David Mecott. I could be wrong.
I know that Nick Cave's written like every single John Hillcoat movie, so or almost everyone. I think one of my favorite scenes between Tom Hardy and Jessica Chastain is the scene at the end where he's like, where she's, you know, confesses like, I drove you to the hospital. You believe in your own damn immortality, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like probably my favorite scene between the two of them. Just because like there is a lot going on in that scene that ultimately just like comes at a weird time and doesn't really amount to much.
I know, that's the thing. I think the other problem is because it's like in that scene, Jessica Chastain's doing all the work.
Yeah, she is doing all the work, because she's like, you can tell like she's hiding something, but she's also not hiding something, and he kind of knows that she's hiding something, but doesn't really say it. Yeah.
Because you know, Tom Hardy is capable of doing a lot with very little, and it seemed like in this movie, especially like in that scene, he's doing a little with very little.
The whole movie is just various bulging of Tom Hardy's eyes, like
and him kind of croaking like a frog.
Yeah. Oh, and like even like the action, quote, action scenes, unquote, like he doesn't really have a whole lot to do, and what he does have to do is kind of like hidden behind like really close camera angles, really like over the top sound effects, and like really weird editing.
Yeah.
So and again, for a movie that should like where we should see Forrest a lot, I feel like he should have a very strong presence in the movie. Like after he gets his throat slit, he's in it for like very little after that. You know, he makes a couple of cameo appearances from Tom Hardy. Everyone clap your hands, you know. But like,
well, and I think it's just a little strange too, because I know like the story, it is
based on a real story, based on real people.
B, it's Jack's story, you know, because he's the character who goes through like changes and whatnot, or the most changes anyway. But I think like, you know, Tom Hardy's character Forrest believes he's invincible and has this kind of gung-ho craziness because of it. And I feel like that should have played a larger role in the development of the story. Because he is kind of, he's game for anything violent because he thinks he can't be killed. So like you would think that would have a bigger part to play in how the events unfold, but it surprisingly doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gary Oldman's great in it, even though he's not in it very much. Like, I love where he, like, hits the guy with the shovel.
Yeah. This bastard wants me to have a blood war, and the cops are riding up my ass so hard. Yeah, Gary Oldman's great. I love it when they test the proof of the moonshine. I was like, hey, that's cool. That's fun. I've never seen that in a movie before. For the 10 minutes that Gary Oldman is in it, and doesn't really come to play that much at all. He's great in it.
I know. It's basically like a glorified cameo, but it's well worth it.
It is. I wish that they didn't. It would have almost been better if they just left his name off of all the promotional material, though. Like, it would have been better as...
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it would have been better as like the Sean Connery cameo in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, because again,
Well, no, what I meant is like I didn't see any of the promotional materials. So I can't
oh,
comment
okay.
on
Well,
that.
even in the beginning of the movie, like his name is, boom, he's got like a huge credit. Like it would have almost been better if it was like with Guy Pearce as blah blah blah, and featuring and special appearance by Gary Oldman as a gangster.
Yeah.
Like
Speaking of Guy Pearce, holy crap. His character is so bizarre. It's amazing.
It's not my favorite Guy Pearce performance. That I reserve for Lockout. But it's quite a performance.
I really enjoyed his performance in the movie. Like especially the scene where he first shows up and he has like this very like he's all like threatening and menacing, but he has this very like effete body language. And his like weird gloves and his ultra slick hair, and his like frilly suit where the coat is way too short.
And his fucking gloves.
His fucking gloves, man. Dude, he's so great.
I loved the
and his weird Chicago accent too.
Yeah.
Thought they said you Bondurant boys were a bunch of hard-boiled sons of bitches. Oh, this is terrible. This just won't do.
Yeah, I came down from Chicago.
I was wondering if
Your friend called me an ant. Why'd he call me an ant?
you call me an ant. I was wondering if it was just like he just didn't have a good accent, or if he was trying for one of those like weird like, oh, this is a sophisticated accent that comes from like 8 different points. Here's this part and this part and this part. Like
This is actually a North Side Chicago accent.
This is but
circa
because
1930.
But because he came from North Dakota, I wanted to make sure that I put a little bit of the North Dakota twang in on every 15th word. But then like he would always use takes where he forgot it.
Because he has like that kind of he has the tough guy grumble, right? It's like yeah, I'm a tough guy. I talk like this, and then he kind of has like that Mike Ditka da Bears way of talking. Like, it's like those put together. So it's like Batman mixed with Mike Ditka. So like I can't. It's really hard to put it together, but that's what Guy Pearce does. He's like, yeah, they sent me down here from Chicago. I'm here to take care of the alcohol problem.
But there's like a little bit of like there's like a little bit of like English accent in it too. It felt like
because he's Australian. So
yeah.
He's way like not only is it hard to do an American accent if you're Australian, like doing a regional American accent if you're Australian has to be doubly difficult.
But he's really good with accents.
He is, but it's like
there's only so many gymnastics he can do.
He kind of there's only so much you can do. So it's like it's understandable if he kind of his accent sort of flies off the handle occasionally. I mean, it's better than like actors from Commonwealth countries have set a pretty low bar for American accents. Like, Charlie Hunnam's American accent has always been awful.
So amazing.
Liam Neeson's various American non-accents where he just sounds Irish.
He was actually in the early 90s. He was in a movie where he had he had like a North Carolina accent.
That just sounds painful.
It is.
Like, a lot of these guys have set a pretty low bar. So to see someone like Guy Pearce, who is actually really good at American accents, do it successfully for so long, and then kind of slip up because his performance is so extravagantly strange in this movie. That's forgivable because I think it also
it adds to the character.
It adds to the appeal of how zany he really is.
Yeah, like I really don't want to know what he did with the black woman in his room as he's like putting in his hair dye. I'm like I can only imagine. And oh my god, he's okay.
And then he gets the balls.
So perfect. I'm like, man, I wonder how many testicles they had to look at to like get that perfect testicle look.
I know. I'm surprised they showed it too. It's like, someone had to make that and like put it in a jar.
I know. That must have been so fun to make though. Let's be honest. It was probably a lot of fun.
Can you imagine them like shooting the shot where he drops the jar and it shatters on the ground, but like they have to do it multiple times?
Well, okay. Quick Hobbit aside. In the extended edition of The Desolation of Smaug, there's a scene where Stephen Fry has to eat yak testicles. And they did like 100 takes where they would make these things that looked like yak testicles that he had to eat over and over and over.
Oh my god! What the hell?
Oh man, that's one of the reasons I like the Hobbit movies, because it's like a little bit more of like the weird, gross Peter Jackson. Okay, back to testicles in Lawless, and how Shia LaBeouf's character doesn't have them, and so they keep making jokes about that. But when the testicles shatter on the bottom of the floor, I laughed pretty hard. Those Australian filmmakers.
I know. Can you just imagine like he drops the jar and the rubber scrotum like bounces out of frame or something? So they have to like, damn it, get another jar, fill it up.
They had like the hero model for the close-up shots, and then they had like 2 balls in like a plastic bag for all of the farther shots. Like, yeah, we had to make backups anyway.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Dane DeHaan does a good job in the movie.
Just quickly to Guy Pearce, one more thing. I thought he's like, as a villain, I think he's really good, but it still felt like it was missing something. In some of the moments near the end. I mean, like, as a bad segue to Dane DeHaan, when he kills Dane DeHaan, it's like, man, that's a creepy scene. But if like by the end of the movie, he almost felt kind of like he had lost a lot of his menace near the end of the movie.
Well, because he was so disempowered at the end.
Yeah, I guess that's what it was. I don't know. There was just like something about it where I was like, yeah, Guy Pearce is so weird in the movie, but it feels like as the movie went, he lost some of his weirdness. Still, I don't know what it is. That's why like Lawless to me is like a movie of, it's almost there. I want to like it so much because Guy Pearce is so weird and creepy and unsettling, but I don't know.
I was just going to say, Dane DeHaan does a good job because he is a very good actor who can't seem to get a job anymore.
Yeah. Well, after A Cure for Wellness, and was not a cure for wellness for his career.
No.
Not at all.
It was a cure for his career, and that he no longer has it. It cured him of having one.
Which is weird because like Dane DeHaan kind of like, he was pretty, he was always good in these side roles, and then he kind of got a lot of popularity because of Josh Trank and Chronicle, and now Tom Hardy's going to be in a Josh Trank movie, and I'm very nervous.
Ooh.
So
I'm kind of disappointed that Tom Hardy plays a senile Al Capone in the new Josh Trank movie. I want him to play like in his prime, like 1920s Al Capone.
Maybe it'll be like Bronson, and just like tell the whole story, and it'll go back to like a couple of scenes where he's like at his peak. Good old Scarface at his peak.
Dude, if Capone is anything like Bronson, it'll be amazing. I just have a feeling it's not going to be. I have a feeling it's going to be kind of lame, and Tom Hardy's going to be the only interesting thing about it.
Just like Venom.
Yep. God, Bronson is so good. Anyway, the thing with Dane DeHaan's character is like from the first scene he's in, you know he's gonna die.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, it's one of those like, it's like a bad cliche that just needs to be eliminated. Like, I shouldn't be getting introduced to the character and know immediately 5 minutes into the movie, this guy's gonna die.
Well, I was kind of, the first time I saw it, I was like, I didn't even remember he was in it, to be honest, the first time I saw it. The second time I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, he dies. But that, the exact moment, I hate it when they do that thing where he's like, you go and get her out of here. It's like, why?
This is the part where he gets killed.
Yeah, it's like, why should he, like, what gives you confidence that like, crippled Dane DeHaan will be able to get Mia Wasikowska out of this situation? Like, he can't even run well. What's he gonna do? Soup up the car with moonshine and go? Like, you're better off.
That's how Shia LaBeouf is, man.
Man, oh god. Yeah, that's pretty good. He was pretty moonshined up and go on this set.
I know. Oh yeah, there's all those things about how he was just hammered all the time and reeked of alcohol.
Oh man. like Mia Wasikowska was literally afraid of him the entire shoot because he was just like drunk off his ass, and I'm like, oh, you mean normal Shia LaBeouf? Or I forgot I was gonna start calling him Shia LaBeouf in honor of Shia LaBeouf in honor of True Grit. Yeah, because I can never pronounce his last name. I'm just gonna start calling him Shia LaBeouf. It's easier. Shia LaBeouf playing a Texas Ranger. The movie no one wants.
I mean, he does a good job as Jack.
As a bitch?
Whatever their name is.
Jack Bondurant.
Bondurant.
Them Bondurant boys. With his Coen-esque voiceover narration. People thought Forrest was invincible. I did too. When you're out in the forest. Because I wanted to say it was Harrison Ford-like, and you can tie that into Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but it's not. It's very Coen-esque.
Yeah, it is very Coen Brothers-y. Like, he does a good job with his character, and it's... I mean, you can tell he's drunk off his ass some of the time, because, like the scene where he's wasted in the church and is, like, trying not to throw up.
He's definitely,
He's definitely trying not to throw up.
Yeah, he was definitely super drunk there, which I can understand. If that's the main scene that he was, I can understand why Mia Wasikowska was, like, frightened to be around him, because I would be too. I was like, man, he's about to puke in my hair. I gotta wash his feet. Bring in the body double. So, just quickly, watching it now, so far removed from 2012, yes, Shia LaBeouf does an admirable job in the movie. At the time, in 2012, when there was, like, articles about how Shia LaBeouf was, like, the last bad boy of Hollywood, this was like there was like there's an article that came out where he's like looking out of a car window and it's like Shia LaBeouf, the last bad boy of Hollywood. I'm like, what are you talking about? Shia LaBeouf looks like a twig.
Oh my god, that's so ridiculous.
Yeah, well, you know, like apparently he got like a reputation for sleeping with co-stars on movie sets.
Who? The dude from Holes?
Yeah, the dude from Holes got a reputation for sleeping with, like...
No, I mean, like, he was sleeping with the dude from Holes.
Oh, no. I think Megan Fox came out and said it, and I was like, what? God. And he, like, at that point, that was before, like, the whole, like, Shia LaBeouf renaissance, where he was, like, a piece of, like, popular art that was, like, molested by someone as he sat in a room with a bag on his head. Like, this was just ramping up into that. So watching Shia...
That was before he became a meme, basically.
Yes. He was in this movie, he was not doing it. For me, at the time, anyway. It's not bad casting, but I also just find Jack Bondurant a really annoying character.
Well, yeah, he's not a very likable character by any means.
Which is a problem. He should be. Throw Ryan Gosling in that role and he's likable immediately.
Oh, can you imagine Ryan Gosling playing like such a whiny bitch though?
Well, so I rewatched the other movie I rewatched was La La Land, which I forgot I was going to talk about that. But yeah, but in La La Land, originally Miles Teller was supposed to be the Ryan Gosling role. And
that's such terrible casting.
Well, and Emma Watson was supposed to be Emma Stone's role, which is also not a great idea. But to me, Miles Teller is Hollywood's favorite asshole. Because like I've never seen a role in where I'm supposed to like him for being like a genuinely likable guy. And almost everything I've seen Miles Teller in, he's been an asshole.
Yeah, well, isn't Miles Teller like an asshole in real life?
According to that one article that starts with, I think Miles Teller might be a dick. Yes.
Well, supposedly Josh Trank beat him up on the set of Fantastic Four.
Yeah. What's sad about that is Josh Trank wanted Miles Teller to be Reed Richards. Yeah. That's why, like...
Well, you know, sometimes... we all
be careful
think
what
we
you
want
wish for.
Something, and yeah, be careful what you wish for. Yeah. We always think we want something, and sometimes it's not a good idea.
But like looking at Seb in context of just like how he's scripted in the movie, aside from his relationship with Mia in La La Land, aside from his relationship with Mia, Seb's kind of an asshole. But you don't you don't notice it as much because Ryan Gosling brings a lot of his own natural charisma and like ability to the role, which is what I think they wanted Shia LaBeouf to do. The problem is Shia LaBeouf is not likable
or charismatic,
or especially in 2012. Yes,
yeah,
I would agree.
I mean, he definitely commands your attention, but not in like a wow, that guy's so charismatic sort of a way. It's more like, what the hell? Like, he commands your attention in that sort of a way.
It's like he's trying to play Sam Witwicky being tough. It's like, no, dude, you are just not a tough guy.
Well, but I mean, that's his character too. Like, the movie is about him being kind of the runt of the litter,
right,
with these three brothers, and then eventually coming into his own by the end.
Yeah, and that's why it kind of works, but it's also what kind of makes him annoying, because when he's going on his rants about like, yeah, no, we should be selling this moonshine for like $5 on the, $5 a bottle instead of like your piddly, $2.50, blah blah blah. He just sounds like a whiny little brat. Mm-hmm. And then like when it all comes to fruition and he's like walking around town in his oversized suit and he's like, yeah, I bought 3 cars and I own half the town. I got a couple of slaves too. And you're like, I guess, I guess like you've made it. But then at the end when he's supposed to be like, the tough guy of like, oh, I was never able to shoot a pig and now I've got to shoot a man. Like that's like the what's it called? The Full Metal Jacket moment. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, just falls flat.
He does have one of those like those weird arcs where he's like the runt of the litter, then he gets successful using his wiles,
using his luck,
and his luck, mostly his luck,
and his brother's reputation.
He gets the fast cars and the nice suits, and then at the end, like, it all goes to shit, and he has to stand up for himself, and it's like one of those weird things. It's like, see, I've learned that life isn't about the fast cars and the nice suits. It's about the friends we made along the way. Like,
the movie devolves into an after-school special.
I mean, because he kind of has that after-school special character arc, though.
He does. Yeah, if after-school special meant blowing the shit out of a cop.
I know. Exactly.
But I
really want like a conspiracy thriller starring like Alex Jones that ends with like them solving like the crazy global conspiracy and beating all the lizard men elites and stuff, and then I want Alex Jones to say, well, that was pretty mind-blowing, but the real conspiracy was the friends we made along the way. I need that to happen. I don't know. Maybe Richard Linklater can do it because I know like him and Alex Jones are buddies.
What?
I want that to happen because they're both like Austin people. Like they're both like Austin, Texas local, like local legends.
But are they actually buddies?
I think so because Alex Jones is in A Scanner Darkly.
What? I'm so confused. The world makes no sense. My mind has officially been blown.
But yeah, that's a complete side note, but like I want that to be a thing.
We'll have that and Michael Bay's Great Gatsby movie. With like where they actually shoot I'm still on this Michael Bay Great Gatsby. Like I want to see like the prolonged 30-minute sequence of Gatsby in World War I? Yeah,
World War I.
Yeah. Anyway, do you think Shia LaBeouf was miscast in this movie?
No, I think he plays a character that's appropriate to his image and acting skills.
He's just so annoying. I hated the fact that I had to watch the story through this fucker's eyes. Oh, God. And I get the women did well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to like a broad statement. I actually really like Jessica Chastain in this movie. This might have been the first movie where I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I am a fan of Jessica Chastain. Because like I thought she did a really good job as what she was. Even though you could kind of see from a mile away. She's like, oh, you're a city girl, huh? She's like, I'm a city girl. And I'm like, is that shorthand for prostitute? Because, like, I think that's where this is going, right? It's like, oh, I saw you on stage with them feathers. Like, oh, the feathers, huh? Is that...
Yeah, weren't you a city girl, huh?
in a city.
So you were a dancer at the Flamingo Club, with the feathers or whatever.
Yeah. That's, I guess, when you should have known that those two stooges were part of Guy Pearce's his coalition. And that was also the point where I was like, this movie makes me uncomfortable, is like after Tom Hardy gets his throat slit, I was like, Jesus Christ, is Tom Hardy really not in that much of the movie? He survived, but... And then, like, they heavily imply that Jessica Chastain's character is raped. And I was like,
yep.
My God, dude, what the fuck? Australian movies, what are you doing?
It's weird because it takes place in America, but it's technically an Australian movie.
Yes.
And it somewhat fits the paradigm of, like, ultra dark and depressing.
Definitely. Definitely.
Although it's not a true Australian movie, because I feel like if it was a true Australian movie done in Australia with all Australian actors speaking in Australian accents, it would be more dark and depressing.
Oh, I was going to say, if it was a real Australian movie, I'm like, what, Guy Pearce is already in it. What else do you need? But yeah, it'd be Guy Pearce doing an Australian accent.
Well, no, it would be like almost everyone dies except for like one person, and then all they get from surviving is like crippling depression.
Yes, more.
And that's the end of the movie.
I mean, afternoon special stuff aside, like the ending is pretty depressing. They're like, 1933, they raised prohibition, was struck down, and it's like, and then we just lived as farmers the rest of our lives. I was like, oh God, talk about depressing. We lived a happy life, Our crazy ass brother got married. He's not crazy anymore.
It sounds like they live a happy, kind of settled down, normal life. It's got that kind of weird Australian irony where, Tom Hardy dies of pneumonia after, suffering all these life-threatening injuries.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. My thing was, like, I knew that he died of pneumonia, but the Wikipedia summary makes it seem like after he fell in the lake that night is when he contracted pneumonia and then ends up dying. The way that Shia LaBeouf, Coen brother, narrates it, I like to believe he might have lived a little bit longer. But
yeah, the way the Coen brother narrates it, it sounds like he dies of pneumonia maybe a month or two after that.
Oh, see, I was gonna say he lived a long life. He didn't have any kids, and he died of pneumonia like everyone else did back then. But yeah,
he died at age 43 of horrible syphilis, like everyone else.
Like everyone else, he was an old man. Mia Wasikowska was she was fine. She's kind of a strange actress. Like I generally like her in stuff, but I don't know why. Because she doesn't really bring anything bad. She doesn't really bring anything good.
She doesn't bring anything interesting, really.
Especially not to this movie. I was like, why is she even in it? But I was like,
she's sort of there.
She's there so that Dane DeHaan could die.
Pretty much. She's a plot contrivance to get him killed. And then he is a plot contrivance to set up the finale.
To get the revenge going. Yeah, she is Mia Wasikowska as the sexy lamp. The preacher's daughter, the sexy lamp of the movie. Like, what? What? Yes. Okay. One step away from an Amish one. Yeah. Everyone's favorite leading man, Jason Clarke, is in it too, which I forgot he was in it.
I forget Jason Clarke is a actor who is in movies.
Not only that, but like he started headlining a bunch of like horror movies. Or like, what kind of money casting wise do we have? Oh, we have Jason Clarke as the lead casting money. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're gonna get Jason Clarke in Winchester and Pet Sematary. And fucking the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is where I think it all started. Like Australian Jason Clarke as the leading man in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. It was like, oh,
doesn't he also play John Connor in Terminator Genisys?
Yes, he does play John Connor in Terminator Genisys, which, spoilers, is also a Terminator in Terminator Genisys, which is an idea they were toying around with in Terminator Salvation. Which just goes to show the less John Connor in a Terminator movie, the better.
Except for Terminator 2.
That's true. So forget what I just said. None of it makes sense.
I presented the one piece of evidence that you ignored.
The whole situation just collapses on itself. That's true. Because I also forgot that John Connor plays a huge part in Terminator 3. I still stand by the best visual effects I saw last year was from Terminator, the newest one, Dark Fate. In the first 10 minutes of the movie, had some of the best visual effects I had ever seen.
Dark Fate.
Dark Fate.
That's such a dumb sounding title.
Apparently, there's a Justin Long movie that had a name that pertained to the plot, and then it ended up getting changed to Taking Chances. he's gone on record. He's like, look, it's I understand it's marketing stuff, but what the you couldn't come up with a more generic name than Taking Chances, could you?
Hey man, it's the world we live in where freaking marketing departments run everything.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of marketing departments and Lawless, this thing went through quite a few name changes before it finally came out as Lawless.
Dude, speaking of marketing departments and Lawless, the official sponsor of Lawless is Ball Mason jars. I did not think it was possible for a period piece to have a corporate sponsor, but there's so much Ball Mason jar product placement in this movie. It's insane.
Dude,
everyone in every scene where someone is drinking something, it is a label out Ball Mason jar that's lit in a way, because they're clear, so you can't see the label from far away.
Right.
But they're always lit just so you can see Ball written on it.
You can see the refraction of it.
You can see the refraction of the engraving. It's oh my lord.
It's so funny because they probably, in hindsight, watching the movie, they could have probably gotten, Coca-Cola to sponsor, because I didn't realize they had large printed large mass-produced printed signs in the 1920s, but apparently they did. And so, they could have had, a lot more product placement, or, on the gas pumps, just, a random Texaco sign. But nope. The one thing that they had to make sure they had, Ball fucking Mason jars.
The funny thing is, it's, there's not even that many Coca-Cola signs. It's just the fact that the movie had a budget to where there's, 5 buildings in the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So, and 2 of them have Coca-Cola signs. It's just kind of how it works out.
Well, so I want to enter this movie into our pantheon of movies that tell you that it's shitty to live in that time period. Because God, I after watching this movie, I was I don't know how Forrest survived 4 gunshot wounds, but he shouldn't have. And then they have those moments in the movie, very beginning, and they never touch on it again, where they go to the all black speakeasy, but they also have this elongated segment in town where they're showing they have water fountains, and this guy walks over to one that's labeled whites and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that they have this kind of shit back then.
It was that was a terrible time to live.
It's Australia being you know what, US, your history's fucked up, and let's prove it to you.
I know. Yeah. It's funny because if an American made this movie, they wouldn't have included the segregation stuff
at all. Not even a hint of it. They just have a black guy go up to a white guy and they're shaking hands because he's just got his mortgage for his new house. I don't think
no need to feel bad, white folks. Everything's fine.
The world is just okay. And then Australia comes in here and they're like, "You guys are fucked up, man. You guys live in Australia." Yeah, I know. That's how fucked up you guys are. Oh, geez. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Australian sensibility of what's the most depressing take we can have on whatever this is that we're doing.
What's the most depressing take? We're gonna go full tilt into that.
Yep.
Oh man. Oh gosh. But it's weird because especially the second time through, I liked it a lot more than I did the first time. It's not that long of a movie, but I feel
it's 2 hours.
It's solid 2 hours.
But it feels long.
It does, and I think part of it's due to the way I'm just gonna say it. I think John Hillcoat is a good filmmaker, but I don't think he's a good storyteller.
Yeah. I can see that.
I've thought about this a long time.
I mean,
This movie
He
should be...
paces his movies pretty slow
Yeah.
in general.
Yes. A lot of long cuts, a lot of long takes. Like even in dialogue scenes where it's just kind of holding on, like Jessica Chastain or Tom Hardy or Mia Wasikowska or Shia LaBeouf. Not a lot of long takes where it's holding on Jason Clarke. I wonder why.
Well, there's no wondering there. We all know why.
On today's episode of Jason Clarke Shitcast. He seems like a nice guy, though.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. So he paces his movies kind of slow. I mean, not only are the shots paced slow, but it's just the scenes themselves. One scene, it tends to be pretty long.
Yeah.
In his movies. Like, I'm thinking of all the scenes in The Proposition that are just very long conversations.
Another thing is like the way he structures the story. The way that like story beats and story moments are juxtaposed next to one another instead of kind of like.
Well, is that him or is that Nick Cave?
It could be both. It's possibly Nick Cave, but it doesn't help matters. Like directorially, like
yeah,
it doesn't help matters because again he's
as
worked
a
with
director,
this guy.
You can completely rewrite the script if you want.
Yeah, and
shooting.
And he's worked with this guy like 3 times before, so it's like the line is very blurry.
Did Nick Cave do the score for Lawless?
He did it along with Warren Ellis, who I do not believe is the comic book writer Warren Ellis, like I originally thought when I saw this movie. It is the musician Warren Ellis, who does not write fucked up stuff. I mean, he probably does, because, Australian, but but not comic book wise.
I always like Nick Cave's score for The Proposition, because it's very unique.
Yeah. I had a hard time getting through The Proposition.
It's kind of the dreamy mood of that movie. I really like The Proposition. I think that movie's so good.
Yeah. Starring everyone's favorite bad guy from Wonder Woman, Danny Houston.
Aw, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one role that I remember of his, because he's so forgettable in everything
else. You know what's funny is I remember Ray Winstone the most in The Proposition, which is kind of why I don't like the movie. Like, don't get me wrong, I actually really like Ray Winstone. But if you're making a movie and you're advertising that Guy Pearce is your main character, and the most memorable thing I remember about it is Ray Winstone, I think you have a problem.
I think The Proposition's great. And I think a lot of the things that people might find kind of strange about it, I think contribute to its quality. Like Nick Cave's weird music.
I actually like the music in Lawless a lot, especially the.
I don't remember the music in Lawless.
Well, I guess specifically, I like when they would have like the shanty songs coming on, like when people would be singing those kinds of things. Like most of the tracks, I guess, by the Bootleggers. Now that I'm looking at it, I liked a lot of that when it came to play because it reminded me a little bit of Gangs of New York when they would have like a lot of the Irish songs come on. And so it helped kind of put it in place. And,
The only time I like that type of music in a movie is Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson singing old sea shanties in the lighthouse.
Well, so I liked it as non-diegetic music. Now, if all of a sudden Shia LaBeouf started singing it, I'd have a problem with it. I'd be like, yeah. But I actually like it when they use period music or quote period unquote music as non-diegetic music. Yeah, that works for me. I mean, of course, Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson singing in general always works for me. But
what if the score was like all synthesizers?
Then it would be a Nicholas Winding Refn movie.
I know.
Nicholas Winding Refn presents Lawless. Just a lot of shots
part
of
what I like about The Proposition is the score for that is super modern sounding.
Yeah.
It's not period accurate at all.
I'm kind of strange in that, like, the easy answer is to say, oh, well, if it fits the movie, then it works for me. But, like, I do genuine, kind of like how they do the scene where they're testing the alcohol proof. Like, or in Serenity with Matthew McConaughey, when they spend the first 15 minutes of the movie of showing him as like a professional fish catcher. Like, I like seeing things or hearing things in movies that I don't I wouldn't normally see or I wouldn't normally think about. So I think if you do put a synthesized score to or like an electric guitar in the middle of Pirates of the Caribbean at some
Which
point,
is the spaghetti western way of doing things.
yes. I think it. I mean, obviously it can work because it worked for Sergio Leone and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I think it would have negatively affected, specifically for Lawless. I think it would have negatively affected it because they worked so hard, and then tear it away. But they worked so hard to build a world that feels like they went back in time to the 1930s to shoot this thing. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they could have given everyone laser guns. Now again, Tom Hardy with God mode on, like I get it for the story, but I'm pretty sure he would have been dead if he got his throat cut like that and lost that much blood. Like,
Yep.
Like I understand that they did a good job of painting Tom Hardy to look like Mike that one day where they overdrew his platelets, where he just looks like a zombie. But shout out to Mike on the music. But
up, bro.
No. But I think that Tom Hardy lost a lot more blood. I don't think he would, like, I understand like stretching the reality to fit what they're trying to say in the movie, but there are limits to what I will believe as far as that goes, and I think they stretched it too far. They went too far on the Leia Organa flying through space scale of reality.
Well, but I think it's supposed to be kind of a mythic or mythological story to an extent. So there's a fair bit of tall tale-ishness, spectacular feats.
Mm-hmm. Again, there's a limit. There's a limit to where I'm like, no, he's fucking dead. Like when he got shot 4 times, like it's impressive that he was able to like stand up. I'm like, okay, I can follow you that far, but hospitals back in that time, when you actually showed me a hospital in the movie and it just looked like no one, like total infestations take place there, infections and everything. I got to draw the line. I think 4 shots and he'd actually have like some sort of infection that would lose his leg.
Yeah.
And as we all know, Tom Hardy without limbs is also really entertaining. So, I don't know. Because I think we've hit most of what I wanted to talk about in the movie.
Yeah, I think so.
No.
I mean, it's a lot of what could have been.
Yeah. Which is
there's so much good stuff in it, but it doesn't ever seem to like coalesce or go as far as it needs to.
Yeah. Which I guess is probably like, if you are a filmmaker, are you satisfied with the reputation of you're ambitious but you fail every time, like
John Hillcoat?
Yes. Like good on you, sir. He's the good hustle filmmaker of Under the Wheels.
Yeah, he's like he's like you tried.
Yeah, I mean, like, is that better than being someone who, like, being like Andre Aja, who's like, oh, you're actually a good filmmaker. Well, I don't know if he is. He had a reputation of like, oh, you're a good filmmaker, but you keep making shit. Like, what would you rather be seen as?
Okay.
What do you think, or what do you think is a better reputation to have?
You're talking about the guy who did the Crocodile Hurricane movie?
I know he did Piranha 3D.
Okay. So I would say it's better to be John Hillcoat, who is ambitious, but his reach exceeds his grasp, than Alejandro Aja, who makes shit on a consistent basis.
But with, like, very polished shit.
No, just
arguably.
Shit. Like, not even polished. Piranha 3D? Are you kidding me? Like, no. John Hillcoat is so much better than that.
All right, I gotta find someone else. Shit, I can't really think of anyone else who would legitimately be a good filmmaker, but continues to operate below what they could be doing. I mean, because like the only other name that comes to mind is like, why is Eli Roth keep getting work?
trying to think of a good comp for John Hillcoat. I mean, David Meekot is honestly a good comp.
As far as like he generally makes good movies, but the last couple movies have been underwhelming.
Yeah, and he seems to be reaching for more than what he's able to achieve.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, I haven't seen War Machine, but like arguably, I would probably watch The King over Lawless. That's not fair because
no,
that's not fair because I feel
Come
like I've thought about Lawless a lot over the last 8 years of like
Lawless is actually an enjoyable movie. The King stinks, man.
I guess so. But it does fit that era of like, God, I wish it were so much better. Kick Timothée Chalamet out of that and put in that other guy who jumped off of the ledge in Game of Thrones. Make him Henry VIII instead. He's kind of likable. He always dies spectacularly in all the things I see him in.
Or just off screen in The King.
Yeah, off screen in The King. Yeah, well, there's your first problem.
Hey Henry, your brother died off screen.
How do you feel about that, Hal?
How do you feel about that? Shit.
It's fine. We can just take his scene from him dying in 1912 and just splice it into The King, and it's the same thing. He died in war.
He's dying in
works.
like modern clothes and shit. He's wearing pants. People didn't have pants back then.
And fucking
like
guns.
Bloomers and skirts and shit.
Yeah, I'm glad the pants are the big holdup. It's not the fucking firearms that George McKay uses. It's the pants, damn it. That's my question. Like, as I guess we already had this discussion when we talked about The King. Then, like, would you rather like succeed spectacularly? Like, we'll use Adam McKay. Like, Adam McKay did a great job in comedies for a long time, and he for a while he was happy there, doing the best he could in a genre that's kind of not really dominated by directors. Would you be more happy having a lot of success but not being ambitious, or being ambitious and only getting 75% of the way there, 80% of the way there?
The latter. I feel like the latter is always going to be better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would rather watch the next John Hillcoat movie if it has a good cast. Because the thing that saves this movie for me is the cast.
Yeah.
Because I've tried watching Public Enemies with Johnny Depp, directed by Michael Mann, and that thing is just such a fucking train wreck. That's the first movie that I watched where I was like, I think everyone in the editing room knew they had shit on their hands and they're just trying to shit something out as best they could. Whereas with Lawless, they at least were aspiring for something deeper, even though I think they probably could have taken away some of the more pretentious stuff and had just a pretty generic but pretty good action-y type movie. I wouldn't even say that, because the action isn't even that amazing. It's in the context of the type of movie they were trying to make that the action actually works to begin with.
Yeah. Imagine if all the action scenes were just like The Raid.
Oh my god, dude. Then you could have the techno score and it would work.
Like that's Gareth Evans, second unit director on Lawless.
Tom Hardy, all of a sudden he's just like punching the guy with like the iron knuckles, and instead of 3 hits it's like 18 as the guy's face turns into mashed potatoes.
He turns into like blood pudding.
The last shot of like Guy Pearce when he gets freaking gutted by Jason Clarke, like as he's walking forward, you just see like all of his intestines fall out of his back. Shia LaBeouf goes up to him in the front and just blows his face away like the one bad guy in The Raid 2.
Shia LaBeouf and Jason Clarke fight him like a mad dog in the first Raid.
Oh my god, that on the bridge.
On the bridge.
Like randomly there's a bunch of like chains and stuff, and they're all rusty because they're trying to make it like as grody
dirty
as
as possible.
Yeah. And like Shia LaBeouf's ending narration, like Jason Clarke did a good job, but he died of tetanus from all the chains that got wrapped around his face. Like,
tetanus.
That's not what happened. What? We're playing fast and loose. But see, okay, add that to the Michael Bay Grinch movie and the Richard Linklater, Alex
Wait,
Jones.
Michael Bay Grinch movie?
Oh, no, not Grinch movie. Although...
That would be something.
Oh, man. Like all of a sudden they're like, oh, we thought it was appropriate to age up Cindy Lou Who. Oh, like to 5 or 6? Oh no, to 21.
Oh no. Oh man.
But like the world needs more Gareth Evans, not Edwards. We don't need more Gareth Edwards. We need more Gareth Evans.
Yes,
movies.
the world does.
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to be getting a TV show and a movie from him this year.
So
we'll see how that goes.
Gangs of London is out. You can watch it in the UK, or if you have a VPN and you jump onto a UK internet access, you can download the UK Sky One whatever app they have for it. Mm-hmm. And then it should be coming to the States in July, I believe. He put out a tweet. He's like, for all of the people in the States, the series will come out sometime in July. We're just looking for the right distributor. So basically whoever will give them the most money. So it should be coming in July at some point, hopefully. His movie, I have no idea when that's coming out, but Gangs of London, hopefully it'll have a bit of that Raid 2 vibe where with the way that they all work together and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, his
generic
Havoc is the movie.
That what's his name was talking about.
Rossitron?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Havoc just because the little tidbit that Gareth Evans gave, he was like, this is the culmination of everything that I've worked on and learned in the action genre. And I'm like, oh shit. It's going to be amazing.
This is the culmination of everything I've learned working in Indonesia. I've brought it over to England where we have completely different stunt crews. That's my fear.
I know, that's the problem, because I feel like in Indonesia they don't give a shit about safety. Yeah. So they do the most just balls to the wall insane stunts, and they're like, look, do you want to make $5 or not? Yes, I would like the $5. Okay, jump through that window. Whereas it's like, oh, is this production covered by the NHS?
It's like, oh no, we can't use that kind of a mirror. We have to use this kind. Okay, well, it ruins the shot a little bit more, but all right. Just compromise, till all of a sudden, instead of jumping through a window or a mirror, all of a sudden it's just oh, we're gonna open the door and slowly walk through. It's not even that. It's also, to me, it's the way that they stage shots or the way that they go about filming the coverage for fight scenes. I hope he kind of sticks to his guns, which it looks like he was able to with Gangs of London, because he video storyboards everything and he actually storyboards everything. So he might be able to make it out without too much sacrifice, because he doesn't seem as anal as Jackie Chan does about making sure the shot is exactly right. The amount of flour flying into the air is exactly the right amount to make it instantly memorable. But there is something to be said for movies that go way over budget because their stunt work is incredible and is the focal point of the movie. That's I think one of the reasons why Police Story 1 is so amazing. I was not a fan of Police Story 2, but Police Story 1 is fucking amazing.
Oh, I was watching TV the other day and I saw Chow Yun-fat playing around with a gun. And I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be good. And then a white person showed up, and I'm like, oh fuck, this is the Replacement Killers, isn't it?
Was it?
And then I hit the guide, and it was. I'm like, damn it.
Oh.
I don't want to see Chow Yun-fat in an American movie. I want to see him in Hard Boiled or The Killer or something.
Dude, I thought you were
from Hong Kong.
I thought you were gonna say I saw Chow Yun-fat playing with a gun, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I saw a white guy, and I was gonna be like, was it Bulletproof Monk?
Oh, at least it wasn't that.
I give it up to Sean William Scott. He really did try to break out of his little cage he made after American Pie. If you could do anything, being I starred in a movie with with gun kata superstar Chow Yun-fat. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you. Chow Yun-fat's best movies by far are the stuff that he made where they just went over budget and overtime every single day trying to make sure they got perfect shots. Yep. With freaking John Woo, who's basically I saw, there was a Netflix movie, or Netflix had licensed out a John Woo movie, and I watched it, and it was all right. It was really weird because they had people speaking Chinese and Japanese and like Indonesian or something else. They had like 3 different Asian languages. So obviously they had a lot of people putting money into this thing from a lot of different countries. But like as I was watching it, I was like, yeah, this is like John Woo doing his John Woo thing. And like I looked at some of the reviews and they're like, has John Woo become a parody of himself? And I'm like, oh my God, this is like The Irishman. This is like John Woo's Greatest Hits, the movie. Oh, jeez. It's sad when that happens.
Well, it happens to everybody at some point.
You're in my mind, you're a lucky filmmaker if you can get it to the point where you can
devolve into self-parody.
Yeah, where you can make the farce of your own movie,
or you can make like a kind of milquetoast greatest hits movie.
Yeah, which people used to argue was Casino, and now I think they'll argue that it's
The Irishman.
The Irishman, yes.
Yep.
Or for
it's definitely The Irishman.
Which is
fun.
Yeah. Although I will say, like, if that happened to J.J. Abrams' career, I believe that would be The Rise of Skywalker. Like, I think he's already made his greatest hits compilation movie.
Aren't all of his movies his greatest hits compilation?
All of his other movies draw heavily off of his own misinterpretation of an intellectual property, and that's why The Rise of Skywalker is his greatest hits, because The Rise of Skywalker is basically his own remake of his own intellectual... It's a remake of his own take on his own intellectual... No.
It's a remake
Yes.
of his own reboot.
It's a remake of his own take on an intellectual property he has already established his take on. It is basically the Casino of his career, more or less, because Casino was seen to a lot of people as a retread of the ground Scorsese had covered in Goodfellas. So I would say with like a slightly different like lacquer in the paint.
It's his Highlander 2.
Oh.
It is though.
It is.
It is his Highlander 2. Let's not pretend it's anything else.
So it's so weird because like I will admit it's probably the worst out of the 3 Star Wars sequels, but it's also, to me, it's like one of the most fascinating movies. Kind of like how when you dissect a frog, it's fascinating. Like dissecting The Rise of Skywalker, I think, is exceedingly more fascinating than dissecting the failings of The Last Jedi, because I know a lot of people like doing that by saying, oh, it sucks because you know it's not enough that. It's like that's whatever. The fact that like The Rise of Skywalker is something that J.J. Abrams clearly had no interest in doing and then tried his best to do it makes me think about the prequels and Indiana Jones 4. There was another movie or like Godfather Part 3 where it's like all of these people coming back to do like basically like a mercenary job on something that they were interested in to a point in a different time, but needed to do it probably just to make money. So like, and then just how those kinds of movies just like epically fail and like there's no passion, or like the Hobbit movies where it's like they do the best to try and put stuff in there for them to be excited, but ultimately it just feels so hollow, and it's weird to try and like pinpoint why. I find The Rise of Skywalker so fascinating because of that. But anyway,
well, it's fascinating in the way that like Samurai Cop is fascinating. You know, it's just there's a lot of baffling things in it.
Yeah,
it's interesting to dig into. Why is this in here? Why is it so weird? Why does it?
Yeah, but like I think with Samurai Cop, I find it easier to pinpoint because it's clearly Samurai Cop was a passion project. So like even though it's bad, you can see who was the filmmaker on that one?
Crap. It's like a Iranian guy.
Yeah, like you can see this as his interpretation of like movie making and the American dream and all of that stuff, and
Amir Shervan.
It's like he's kind of like John Hillcoat. That is his what he wanted to do far exceeded what he's able to do. But it's endearing. Whereas like with like The Rise of Skywalker, it's like almost corporate money making at its most cynical from a filmmaker. And it's really fascinating. They should give a Star Wars movie to John Hillcoat. That's what the world needs to bring it back to Lawless.
Dude, the most depressing Star Wars movie ever.
With like the best cast you've ever seen. Like many things, I would watch that movie. If you gave John Hillcoat a Star Wars movie, Jesus Christ, that'd be interesting. Or like Sam Raimi in Spider-Man 3. It's like you could tell that his heart was not in it.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting for Doctor Strange, Into the Multiverse of Madness, which will end up being Sam Raimi's madness in trying to get this movie made with any sort of life and non-pandering to Marvel. Although, yeah, it'd be funny if, like, because, like, you're a huge Doctor Strange fan. Sam Raimi is a huge Spider-Man fan, which is one of the reasons why I'm sure one of the reasons why they gave it to him. They're like, oh, well, you're cheaper than getting, like, Steven Spielberg. And, oh, you like Star Wars? Oh, and your movies come under budget? Okay, cool, yeah. Or Spider-Man, and your movies come under budget? I would be fascinated if he's just like a general Steve Ditko fan, and he's like, actually, I'm also a huge fan of Doctor Strange. And, like... That
would be something.
Like, I know all of, like, the ways that these movies are going wrong. I'm going to embrace them, because he clearly embraced a lot of the problems that the Spider-Man movies had that were not, we talk about lore, that were not lore accurate to the Spider-Man universe. He's like, oh, it's fine. At least he's swinging around on webs, and I can put a horror reference in Spider-Man 2. I'm hoping he gets to put a lot more of his own little PG-13ized horror movie like tropes and cliches into Multiverse of Madness.
I have no hope for anything that comes out of Disney. So,
dude, Disney right now doesn't seem to have any hope of even coming out of this thing intact.
Good.
Like
crumble.
Like we talk about like what would it take for Disney to kind of go belly up and stop buying everything to own the world. There's a good chance Apple will have to buy Disney just to make sure Disney survives. And I don't know if that's better or scarier.
I'll buy the X-Men off of them for pennies on the dollar.
You're like Old Man Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. No, I'll buy the X-Men, 50 cents on the dollar. like what? Well, we won't sell you Wolverine. Well, that's fine. I'll take everything else.
I'll take Jean Grey, Professor X, Magneto, and Deadpool for $2,000.
Disney's like doing the math in their head. They're like, how many theme park tickets does that buy? Let's see, how much electricity can I use to power Disney World?
How many toys is that?
How about I just buy the merchandising rights to it? Ooh. Fuck, man. Like
that's the real smart move is to buy the merchandising rights.
What was I know Mark Hamill had it in his. I was talking about because a lot of people who perform live or perform on stage, they'll have something that in the Marvelous Miss Maisel they call the weird ask. But basically, like there's like requirements that they have that the venue has to fulfill in order for them to sign the contract. And so for Kevin Smith, like one of the things is he demands a towel because back when he was like 400 pounds, he would stand up and walk on stage a lot and he'd sweat a lot. For like Gwen Stefani, it's something weird, but like the weird ask for Mark Hamill is like, oh, I'll be in Star Wars as long as I get one version of every single toy. So I had to think about like, man, what would my weird ask be? Like something that's just so strange that like if this property took off, I would be able to like reap in the rewards of it. Kind of like how George Lucas was able to kind of like sneakily like, oh, you guys are gonna give me merchandising rights? Okay, well, instead of Star Wars being a film franchise, it's gonna be a merchandise franchise. Like hey man, that's how Uncle Walt did it with Mickey Mouse. It's like the cartoons, yeah, they're pretty memorable, but you know what's even better than the cartoons? Watching the cartoons with your Mickey Mouse doll. And just because I need more characters, here's Donald Duck and Goofy, and here's 2 chipmunks, 2 for the price of 1. So. Yeah, if only they merchandised Lawless better. I'm just kidding.
Dude, Lawless merch? Yeah, like Tom Hardy with his throat cut action figure.
Dude, that'd be awesome. Shia LaBeouf peeing his pants. Actually, I was thinking like the what would be great is the Lighthouse action figures, or like Lighthouse like collector's memorabilia, where you could just get like a chamber pot, like, get a little like mermaid doll, and like and you can buy a mattress from the Lighthouse with a little hole cut in. Like, oh god, Jesus Christ.
Oh, it's terrible.
Pre-fucked steaks. Let's do it.
It's like a Willem Dafoe action figure, and the accessories are like a lobster, a chamber pot,
a bed with a hole, fucking steak. And you can remove his clothes too for when you buy the Lighthouse. The what do they call those things? Like with Batman, they had the Bruce Wayne's mansion, like the playset, like location mansion that they just colored over and like released like 50 times. Like they have the Lighthouse version of that, where you can like open up the lighthouse and turn on the light and just hear like ee! It's like all the parents like write in to complain about it, and it's like gets a bunch of
if you turn on the light, it causes like instant insanity for anyone who looks directly into it.
It's like it's like for some reason our dogs won't approach the house anymore. Like we can't understand why.
My son has gone incurably insane from the eldritch horror contained within this playset.
Their son is just laying outside with like a crow picking at his eyeball, or a seagull picking at his eyeball. He's like, no, my poor son, my poor child, what happened? It's like all of these lawsuits, but it's just like the Pinto. It's like, hey, you know what? We can handle these lawsuits and just pay him out. It's cheaper than just like changing the sound of the freaking Lighthouse toy. Oh my god. Of course, the natural progression of this is that they eventually like make a book about the trial, and then they make a movie, and the movie's budget is like $150 million because they had to get like a top tier cast. And this is all ironic because the actual movie, The Lighthouse, was made for $4 million.
Yep.
Man, I have nothing else to add.
Yeah, neither do I. Lawless is pretty good, but it's like it's one of those movies that on paper it should be so much better than it is.
Yeah. It should be one of those things where it's like, you know, like it should be film art, and it tries to be desperately, but it just misses the mark. It's just
it should be like The Godfather or something. Yeah. Or not, I mean, not quite The Godfather, but like Godfather adjacent. What?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, it tries to use a lot of similar tropes. It's just, you know, they needed to put the sepia tone, the baby diaper brown filter over the entire movie, and then you would have had it. But I agree. It should have been an Academy Award nominee. That was. Let me put it to you this way: the nomination it got from the Cannes Film Festival, it's not. That ain't the movie that this is. It tried to be, but I don't think it's quite there. Speaking of things that aren't quite as good as we hope they would be, we do have a website. I feel like my segues are either getting a lot better, or they're just staying the same amount of shitty.
I think that was one of the best ones so far.
What's our website? What's our website address?
It's underthewheels.wixsite.com/blog.
Very exciting.
Yes.
What else? You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I don't think they call them iTunes Podcasts anymore, do they?
No, it's Apple Podcasts now, since they rebranded.
Just like we did to Under the Wheels Reborn, kind of.
Well, kind of.
The soft reboot of the soft reboot. Look us up, Under the Wheels. You can find the podcast. Although all the episodes I put as Under the Wheels Reborn, you should still be able to find them as Under the Wheels. Mm-hmm. Fan mail, send it over to underthewheelspodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Like us on Facebook.
Yes.
Rate and review the podcast on
Definitely.
Whatever platform you have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. The titles for the episodes are better on Facebook. So make sure you look there.
Thanks to Mike for the awesome theme music.
As
One thing I was
always.
gonna say is like a lot. I don't mean to brag, but a lot of podcasts have like really lousy theme music. Like it's always like some very light, inoffensive, corporate-sounding electronic like bleep blorp garbage. Whereas like we actually have legit music, like something that's actually good for our theme song. So thank you, Mike Foster.
Yeah, I actually, like, one of the kicks I get is I always have to figure out when to start dialing down the music, because I kind of just like sitting there and listening to it. And Mike does good music. We should plug his SoundCloud someday, because he occasionally releases tunes on there.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I'll put a link.
Figure out what that is.
I'll hunt him down, force him to give me the URL to his SoundCloud, and put it in the show notes, so that everyone can listen to him. By the way, I don't know if they transfer on iTunes, but the show notes that are on our episodes, if you go to underthewheels.wixsite.com/blog, we have the actual URLs and linkable content, so that a lot of the stuff that we talk about that make it onto the show notes, you can click on those links and see what we're referencing.
I think they do. They are functional on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. Because, yeah, that was one of the things that I was trying to make a more concerted effort, because we talk about a lot of this stuff, and it helps, I think, for people to have a reference on what we're talking about, even though they'll probably do like I do whenever they're like, you should watch the whole video, the other person's whole video, to make sure I'm not misrepresenting my argument. They're not going to, you're probably not going to click on it. But if you're looking for extra context for our episodes, it helps to click on the material.
Yeah, definitely, because I think sometimes we get like buried in layers of references.
Our own Under the Wheels lore.
Our own Under the Wheels lore, so it helps to have some context as to, like, if you haven't seen such and such movie that we're very fond of bringing up repeatedly, like, here's a little synopsis or something for you.
Yeah, definitely. Very good. Do you have anything else to add today, sir?
Nope.
No more ball mason jars?
Oh,
This episode of Under the Wheels Reborn, presented by Ball Mason Jars.
Ball
Not really.
Mason Jars, if you ever want to sponsor us, you know where to find us.
Yeah, we could even... Yeah, seriously, like, we love Moscow mules. Just kidding, I don't love them. But if I did, I would love to enjoy them out of a copper cup. Barring a copper cup, though, I'll take a Ball Mason jar.
Well, there is one person who, teaser, should be rejoining the podcast sometime soon, who is a huge fan of Moscow Mules. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're his favorite drink.
Oh my god, are they really?
Yeah.
Oh. Moscow Mule, what rating do you give it?
It's fine.
I'm not a fan of the ginger beer. I love ginger ale, but I don't love the ginger beer. Just to be difficult and different, it's mediocre. But I can understand why people like it. But Ball Mason Jars, please sponsor us, so that when our supposed guest, when he comes back, he can advertise them for you.
I know. Can you imagine us doing ad reads?
Oh my god, that's the dream, dude. No, seriously, like, I feel like our ad reads would be amazing. I don't think anyone would buy the product that we're advertising, but I think they would be amazing.
I feel like we could do pretty good ad reads.
I guess the question is, how much of it would be scripted, and how much of it would basically just be you and I trying to justify us selling out for the ad reads.
I think absolutely none of it should be scripted.
Yeah, well, I think so. What I think is I think they have like a list of things that we have to hit, and so it would kind of be like when we're trying to plug all of our stuff, we would just randomly be like, oh yeah, and Ball Mason Jars, the right size for the right container, and the caps that I can never open because they're too hard. I think we would. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting. I think advertisers who are looking to advertise on podcasts that nobody listened to please reach out to us for a testing ground, because we could be the marketing tool you need to bring your product over the top. There's my pitch.
Man, all we need is Hideo Kojima to retweet our Death Stranding podcast, and that'll get us like 10,000 listeners. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think the cover art alone would probably set him off as like, who are these hacks? Why did they make a reference to Parasite in the middle of Death Stranding? That's
so metaphorical.
Dude, it is so metaphorical, man. Just like Matt Damon, just like Matt Damon's head over Jude Law's body in a mirror, dude. So metaphorical.
Yeah, the best kind of metaphor.
The best kind of metaphor, one that smashes you over the face.
Oh, totally.
I think we should go out on that note. I think it's a perfect note to go out on.
Yes, hyper-aggressive symbolism for the win.
Oh man, we turned back the wheel on this episode, including self-referential analysis of other episodes we've done. Man, oh geez, what are we?
Dude, that was the John Hillcoat of send-offs. That was like, you tried.
That we should end it like a John Hillcoat movie. Super depressingly. Oh. And that's Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe, and everything is sad now.
As with all things, you have just been under the wheels. But now we need like a soundbite of Guy Pearce to end it properly.
Oh, this is terrible. Just won't do.
It's starting to get harder and harder to find that ending point now, because we'll usually throw in a joke that I'm like, that's good. Just tail it off a little more.
I know there was one I was going back over recently where it's like we do all the plugs and then there's another like half hour left.
I think that's the Hideo Kojima episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I remember cutting it. I was like, oh my god, we went on for a long time talking about something. Is it that one, or was it? It might have been The Apartment.
I think it was the Death Stranding one.
Yeah, I think so. That one was. I should retweet it. I should just tweet Hideo Kojima like, oh man, look at this incredible podcast that talked about Death Stranding for 3 hours. See if he listens to it as we spoil everything.
Wait, does he even like speak English?
Hideo Kojima?
Yeah.
Didn't he speak English like in Metal Gear Solid 4? He's like, ooh, I really like to play. Like, no, I know that. Okay, wait. So two things. So I want to go back to Death Stranding quickly, but it's so weird to think that director of Dr. Dolittle and Syriana, Stephen Gaghan, directed the majority of the Wii commercials, of the initial Wii rollout commercials. Like,
it's weird that the guy who directed Syriana also directed
Dr. Dolittle.
Dr. Dolittle, starring Robert Downey Jr. as himself.
Starring Robert Downey Jr. trying to recapture Oscar glory from from Chaplin. Dude, Robert Downey Jr.'s British accent has not changed in 30 years. Like, he used the same accent in Chaplin as he does now. It sounds exactly the same.
It's his just human Twitter feed, like bap 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 way of talking, but with a slight British inflection.
But there's like British inflection.
Finished.